In this video, I want to demonstrate how to create a simple funnel, and we'll also discuss a little bit about the design for manufacturability if we're going to 3D print this funnel. So the first thing that I always do when I start a new part file is I expand the origin and right click and turn on the visibility of the origin center point. I always use that as reference for the datum defining my model. I'm then going to right click on the XY plane and create a new sketch. I'll then draw a rectangle from the origin, and I'm going to come down here to the left about like that, and then I'm going to dimension. Actually, before I dimension, I'm going to end up revolving this to make this into a cylinder. So I'm going to right click and change this to a center line type, or you could click on it and come up here and set it to a center line type. I'll then dimension from the center line, not to point, from the center line over to this line, and that gives me a diametral dimension. And I have a design specification where I want an ID, an internal diameter of 40.1 millimeters. I don't have a specified height for this, so let's make this one 40, and later on we can go back and change that to whatever if we want to change it to something else. Then I'm going to draw 3 more lines, so I'm going to come up here, and let me start that command over again. So I'll do the line command. I want to make sure I snap to, make sure you see that green dot, I snap to that corner, and I'll come over, and I'm going to come over here where I'm looking straight up from this point. And actually, if you come in, I didn't click on there, but if I move my mouse up from there, you may be able to see a tracking line that will get you directly above that point. If you don't get directly above it, you could do vertical and put a vertical constraint on it. In this case, I got it, so I don't really need to put that in there. I am then going to change this to a center line. And I don't really need that unless I'm going to give the diametral dimension from here to here. But let's say I know the angle dimension, let's say, is 25. And so I'll put in that angle dimension. And let's say that I need a height from here to here, let's say, of 70. Okay, so my sketch down here, it says is fully constrained. There's also a push pin over here letting me know that it's fully constrained. And so I have it fully constrained, so I will do finish sketch. I'm then going to do revolve, and Inventor may or may not automatically select the areas to revolve, and it might or may not select the axis. If I want to select that axis, if I need to select it myself, I'll select that. And so there is my part revolved around the center line. And then I'm going to put a fillet in this corner right here, and let's make that fillet, let's say, radius 6, whatever you might want to put in here. And then I want to make this a funnel that I can pour or put something through, so I need to make it thin walled. So to do that, I'm going to do shell. I want to remove this face on top, and I want to remove this face on the bottom, and I'm going to put in my shelf thickness of 3 millimeters. Now when I do that, I'm thickening it towards the inside, which, remember that 40.1 dimension I had down here earlier? I don't want to change that inside diameter, so I'm going to tell it to thicken this towards the outside, and so it'll take that dimension towards the outside. And so now we see that our part, and if I come over here and I expand the revolution, I right click and turn on the visibility of that sketch, we see that original 40.1 specification that we had goes to the inside of the cylinder. And if I wanted to change a height, it's a simple matter of double clicking on the dimension and then click the update lightning bolt, and it will change the height of that. If I wanted to change the diameter, just double click on it, change that diameter. If I want to change this height, just double click on it. If I want to change this angle, let's say to 30 degrees, I'll just double click on it, change it, and then I update it. Now on the angle, if you're going to 3D print this, say this is the bed of your printer, if the angle is too great, your printer will have to build support structure. But if it isn't too great, it may not need to build a support structure. So that is dependent on your particular printer. So you need to keep in mind those design ideas, design for manufacturability, how you want to print this. Let's right click and turn off the visibility of that sketch. Some other considerations is maybe I don't want this fillet in here. If I take it out, if I come over here and delete or just suppress that fillet, we see that there's a sharp edge here and a sharp edge here. I kind of like that fillet, so I'm going to undo that and put it back, but that's up to whatever your design intent is. I may also want to put a fillet up here on this edge, so I'm going to select this edge, and let's make that smaller. Let's say 0.5. So I put a small fillet to break that sharp edge, and maybe I also want to do that same fillet down here, and so I've put some fillets on those sharp edges. This is going to slide over another tube, so it might be useful to put a chamfer down here on this edge, let's say 1 millimeter, and that will help center this over a tube and get it going, sliding down onto the tube. So we could assign a plastic material, whatever it is. We could assign a pretty color, whatever color we want to put on our part, and then we're ready to go to save this out as an STL file to print it. And keep in mind now, anytime we want to make a change, we can just either right click edit that sketch or turn on the visibility of the sketch, and we could double click and change whatever numbers that we need to update, and that updates our model.